Hello everyone and welcome to a game a lot of you have requested, and I said I was going to cover it, but I haven't had time up until now. It's a game from the Xtracon Open. We've been following the success of Pragnananda and Vaishali, so we haven't really been checking up on any other games from Xtracon, but now it's time for me to show it to you. It's really amazing. Truly, a hidden gem of the tournament. It's played between Ukrainian Grandmaster Alexander Moiseenko and the Danish international master Kassa Korley, also known as Kassablanca. So without further ado, let's just check it out, as it's quite a game. Moiseenko opens with d4 with d5. C4, e6, knight to c3, and knight to f3. So the queen's gambit is on the board, and we have an early trade in the center. C captures, e captures, and now bishop to g5. Unlike Lasker, Moiseenko prefers to develop his dark square bishop before finishing up the pawn chain. So c6, as now the bishop threatens the knight, you want to enhance the defense in the center. So c6 defends the d5 pawn with e3, now finishing up the pawn chain, and here bishop to d6 by Korley. It's interesting, as we've covered today already, Kassablanca versus Lasker Game 8 of the World Chess Championship. We said that the bishop to f5 was very nice by Kassablanca, as you always have problems developing the light square bishop. So here you could play bishop f5, preventing bishop to d3, but then white can go into the queen f3 line. Your bishop is under attack, and after you kick the bishop away and move your bishop back to g6, which only makes sense, you don't want to move it back to where it came from, now you just capture. And after this capture, you get this position where black's pawn structure is all messed up. He has 3 pawn islands. You're gonna play knight e2, you're gonna go g3, knight is coming to f4, and you're just gonna have a very nice position with white. So it is possible. I don't think it's good for black, so that's one of the reasons why you don't develop it like this, even though you would seemingly try and get away with the development of the light square bishop. But okay, bishop to d6 by Korley, with bishop to d3, and now comes castles, and queen to c2, now already with the threat just capturing on f6 and picking up the h7 pawn. So Korley defends with h6, pushing the bishop back with bishop to h4, and now rook to e8, just nicely developing. The white king is still in the center, with knight to g to e2, preparing the castle. Who knows, maybe kingside, maybe queenside, we'll see what happens. And Korley pushes a5. Now, of course, you don't want to castle queenside. Black already started expanding on the queenside. And another thing Korley has done, he's preparing knight to a6, which makes sense. You do have a queen and the bishop here, so knight to b4 is the idea. After a3 is played to prevent knight before the knight can be remaneuvered to c7, and from c7 the knight has a lot of useful squares. So first h3 before castling, you want to take away the g4 square from black's pieces, and now there is one game in the database where knight bd7 was played, but here Korley goes for knight to a6, and now it is as of move 11 that we have a completely new game. And white to move. So of course you have to prevent the bishop to knight to b4. You don't want to allow an attack against the queen and the bishop. You're going to lose your light square bishop, which is a pretty awesome piece here. So a3, and now just remaneuvering the knight c7. The knight is now coming to e6. From there you can come to g5, and if white doesn't want to give up the bishop pair, you can maybe even play knight to e4. Which would be quite an accomplishment. So we have castles by Korley, and now knight to e6. And here we have f3, taking away not only the g4 square, but also the e4 square from black's pieces. And now even after this knight comes to g5, you don't really have e4. And another thing this f3 move does is it prepares e4, as white wants to play e4 as soon as possible. So here Korley finds a very nice maneuver, knight to g5, and here what you have to play with white is f4, and black will realize that the e4 square is not available, because if you play knight to e4, for example, knight g4, then white will just capture it, and after d captures, yes, for the moment, okay, the e4 pawn is defended, but knight g3, and now both knights and the queen are attacking the pawn here. Next move, white will just pick it up, and there's nothing black can do to prevent it. You can't go bishop f5, the f5 square is defended by the knight. So f4 would have been best here. But then again, f4 is such an unnatural move to play. After f4, you leave such a huge hole on e4 for black's pieces. It's unnatural, but here you have to do it. But Moiseenko did not play f4, he played e4, which makes sense. You know, a nice central breakthrough, you're threatening e5 to win material here, why not? But it doesn't work, so feel free to pause the video here and try to find why it doesn't work and what Korley had prepared here. Well, I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. The position for white is definitely not unassailable, and for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, black here played knight f captures on e4, so just grabbing that pawn. And here you're asking white, what are you going to do? If you don't capture the knight with f captures on e4, then you just lost the pawn. Whatever white plays, you're going to capture on c3, and you're going to say thank you for the pawn. You've obviously missed this. Which Moiseenko did miss, and here he wanted to hang on to everything, but it's you have to capture it, there's no way around it. Here he played f captures on e4, and now most likely you found this idea because you saw that the bishop on h4 is undefended, and this is the point of the combination. Here Korley plays knight captures on h3 with check, and now the next move, queen will pick up the bishop on h4. So you play g captures on h3, and now queen captures on h4. So already black has a wonderful attack. He sacrificed a piece. The bishop pair is nicely slicing over to the king side. If you can get the rook into the attack, it's going to be really awesome. For example, rook e6 to g6 check. There's not much this white king can do. So here, how do you defend? It's not all that clear. For example, e5 loses to the very unpleasant rook captures on g5. So there's no really no way to fend off the bishop pair. If you capture bishop c5 check, and you're just getting destroyed here. There's no defense here. The bishops are doing all the work. The queen slices all the way here. If you go king h2, then just queen captures on h3 is checkmate. So a very delicate position. Here Moiseenko played rook to f2, trying to get his king to start running away, but you know, it's very unlikely that you will be able to do this. Here, bishop captures on h3 was played. If you play queen captures on h3, you might think, okay, it's the same idea, I'm just going to play something like this. It's not the same, because here white has e5. And the difference is, now if you try this, rook captures, pawn captures, and bishop c5, the rook already prevents check, so it's white to move. You're just going to play knight d1. And now, black already sacrificed a lot of material. If you don't have mate, you're just gonna lose. And for example, the queen is now attacking the bishop. You don't want to trade here. You're down material. So bishop a7, and now knight to f4, kicking the queen away. Queen g3 check. It's not a problem. King f1, and black has no way of continuing the attack successfully. So here white would be able to fend off the attack, and it's not a problem. So here you have to be absolutely precise on what you do. Bishop captures on h3, introducing another piece into the attack. And here it's hard to defend. The engines give knight captures on d5, but it's still not good enough for white. After c captures, now e5, and okay, you do block some of the attackers, but still bishop e7 can come to g5 to e3, and still it's very unpleasant for white. However, Moiseenko played rook 8 to d1, and it does make sense. You want to play rook d2 to help out with the defense of the rook here. You want to move the knight, but this loses terribly, as now you've seen that the crucial defense against the rook e5 was that this knight was coming to the d1 square. Now after rook to d1 was played, this no longer exists, and this of course allows Korley his next move, which of course I don't have to tell you what it is. It's rook to e5, and now you can see that the bishop slices over this way, this bishop slices over this way, the queen controls the h-file, rook g5 check will be deadly. So how do you prevent this? Of course you have to capture the rook, there's no other way. D captures on e5 was played with bishop to c5 now, putting pressure on the rook here. Queen captures is the threat. You don't have a good way of dealing with this, as the rook on d1 is now preventing the knight from coming here to add another defender to the f2 square. So here you have to move this knight so the queen protects the rook. So here knight to d4 was played. You might be thinking, why give up the knight? There's no point in doing this. You could try simply knight to c1. This doesn't work. There's the reason why Moiseenko played knight d4, because here queen g3 is the idea. Of course the rook is pinned, you cannot move it, and after king h1 now you capture, and now only the queen defends the f2 square, so you're not really defending anything, and the next move it's checkmate, or you're gonna have severe material loss. So knight to d4 instead, and now comes the bishop captures on d4, but now rook d2. So okay, now the queen, the rook, and the king guard the f2 square. But it's still not enough. Queen to g3 check, we have king to h1, only move, and now bishop to g4. The threat is bishop to f3 check, and then after rook captures, the bishop will be guarding the g1 square, so queen to g1 will be mate. That's the threat. So white prevented it with bishop to f1, now preparing to meet bishop to f3 check with bishop to g2, but it's not enough. Feel free to pause the video here and try to find a nice mating sequence for black. It's really nice, so I'll give you a couple of seconds once again. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent mater in 3 on the king side. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, bishop f3 check. With bishop to g2, okay, this was planned, but now you will not be able to capture the queen. Queen to h3 check, and it was in this position that Ukrainian Grandmaster Alexander Moiseenko resigned the game. He resigned as there is only one move here. Of course, you cannot capture. We already mentioned due to the pin here. The point is bring the king over to g1, so the rook is pinned. So king g1 would have to be played, and now you can play queen captures on g2, and you have this beautiful mate where the rook is unable to capture the queen due to the nice pin by the dark square bishop here. So this is the power of the bishop pair, once again nicely demonstrated by the Danish international master Kassablanca here. And it really just reminded me the powerful attack on the king side of the, I believe it's 1957 Soviet Championship. We covered this game, Boguty Gorgonidze versus Mikhail Tal, where Tal unleashed a monstrosity of an attack on the king side, similar to this one, although it did involve a queen sacrifice. If you haven't seen it, I will put it in the description below. It will be the first thing you see. So if you haven't seen the game Gorgonidze versus Mikhail Tal, do check it out. It's an old video. I know it's hard to watch my videos in only 30 frames per second, but it's a nice game. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. And also, I would just like to mention that Kassa Korley also has a YouTube channel. So do check it out. It will be the second link in the description below. If you enjoy, well, if you've enjoyed his game, maybe you will also enjoy his channel. Maybe learn how to play in such a nice style. He doesn't have many videos. I believe he only has 6 videos so far. He has a playlist Road to Grandmaster, so he's trying to become a Grandmaster. I think he achieved his first Grandmaster normal already. But maybe he will also cover this game on his channel, so you know, you're welcome to check it out and maybe wait for that, if it will happen. I have no idea. But yeah. That's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, do check out Gorgonidze versus Tal. Really just a beautiful game. I would like to thank Jeff Graves, Fabian Wick, Dame Pletvarec, Konstantinos Kafetsopoulos, and Alexander Vanos for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Checking up on your suggestions such as this one, so thank you for that. Continuing the Kassablanca saga, and well, checking whatever happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your Sunday.